Everyone knows about the abandoned theme park on the edge of town. It was called Shaky Acres, not to be confused with the retirement homes, Shady Acres. For the longest time, the park was a prominent feature of our small suburban town. Built in the late 1980s to attract tourists to our remote area, it had once been a decent park, with a variety of rides and concessions that kept visitors returning. It wasn't as fast or intricate as the major theme parks, but it was still fun. Townsfolk loved it because tourists stayed at local hotels and shopped at nearby stores, bringing in revenue. Sure, a few purists disliked the influx of outsiders, but most people were fine with it. I only visited Shaky Acres once, before its closure, and my memories are limited. I was barely old enough to walk, so most details are blurry. I remember the external wall and the rustic woodland theme with large logs surrounding the park like a fortress. The rattling of wooden roller coasters and the screams of patrons are the only things that remain clear. Just a year and a half later, the park shut down due to underperforming numbers. A new megapark, constructed closer to the metropolitan city, had 9 times the rides in scale, crushing the competition. Shaky Acres fell into squalor, rusting over the decades. The state was too cheap to demolish it, leaving it to decay. The park's derelict state affected the town. Anyone driving past would see its rotting exterior and rusted attractions and move on, lowering property values. Soon, rumors began. People claimed to see strange shapes moving in the park, or hear ominous sounds from its dark corners. Whispers spread that it had become haunted, and anyone who entered never returned. These were just the kind of scary stories townsfolk told each other, until they started to feel real. About a week and a half ago, a friend named Brian asked about my weekend plans. I admitted it would be another stretch of TV dinners and reruns. He laughed and said I needed to get out more. Brian was gathering a few guys to go drinking and invited me along. I wasn't enthusiastic, but he was right. I had been cooped up for days. He said he'd pick me up for 8 p.m. on Friday. Friday night arrived. A loud horn outside drew me from the house. I threw on a jacket and got into Brian's car. 2 other guys were with him. One that I knew, Mick, and one I didn't, Danny. Mick was the type who loved pranks that weren't funny but didn't stop him. Danny gave little impression, and I mostly forgot he was there during the drive. We drove further from town, past the usual bars. I asked Brian where we were going. Mick had been banned from the local bar for life after setting the counter on fire. Brian said we were drinking at a park instead. I sighed at the thought of public intoxication, but he assured me no one would bother us. About 20 minutes later, Shaky Acres loomed in the distance. The imposing exterior wall was missing its front gate, likely due to vandalism. Most of the park had been gutted, and the narrow pathways were hard to navigate in Brian's SUV. We parked near a dilapidated carousel, its collapsed roof making the ride look like a UFO. Standing there in the heart of the abandoned park, I felt a wave of unease, like being somewhere we shouldn't. Mick broke the silence and tossed out beers. We drank and wandered, exploring old stands and crumbling rides. The park was mostly picked clean. After a while, I noticed we were missing someone. Mick. Just as I was about to mention it, a blood-curdling scream pierced the night. We froze. Brian told us to follow him. We zigzagged past decrepit game stands and food kiosks until reaching a clearing where the scream had come from. A figure stood stiffly in the center. It was Mick. He slowly turned and burst out laughing. Brian punched him lightly, but we all couldn't help laughing. Mick bragged about how well he got us. As we headed back to the car, I noticed Danny had stopped a few feet behind. I called the group back, and we saw his face as white as a ghost. He pointed to one of the old stands. Two eyes glowed from the shadows of the shack, perfectly round, staring at us. Mick, ever reckless, called us pansies and approached, opening a beer and hurling the can at the eyes. A massive clawed hand shot out, skewering the can mid-air. Its fingers, nearly a foot long, ripped the can to pieces. The creature emerged, crawling on all fours. Its smooth grey body resembled something from a sci-fi movie. It circled us deliberately. Even Mick went silent. Its pupils were the size of baseballs, and its mouth looked like a vice, filled with razor blades. It approached Mick, paused a few inches from him, and then stood on its hind legs, a foot and a half taller than him, leaning its face down. After a few seconds, it returned to all fours and moved toward us. I grabbed Brian and Danny, shouting to run. We bolted through the park, desperately seeking the car. At one point, I ran alone. The only sound was my shoes on concrete. Rounding a corner, I was blocked by the creature. I ducked and narrowly avoided it, crashing into crates. Its eyes bored into mine, cold crawling through me. Its massive claw tapped on the box near my head. Then, for a moment, it spoke.
This place is mine.
All I could do was nod. Fear-stricken, it released me, and I ran back to the car, where Brian and Danny were waiting. Brian asked about Mick, but I didn't know where he was. Suddenly, a figure approached. Our hearts raced, expecting the creature, but thank God it was Mick. His eyes were wide, trembling. He got in the car silently, and we drove out of Shaky Acres as the sun rose. Since that night, Mick hasn't spoken to us. None of us want to discuss it. We've tried to resume normal lives, chalking it up to a drunken episode, until yesterday. I was driving near the park, and for a brief second, I swore I saw those two large eyes staring at me from the dark entrance of the abandoned theme park. I used to work the graveyard shift at a Dunkin' Donuts. For those who don't know, it's basically a donut chain that sells coffee, breakfast items, and of course, donuts. It didn't always have a night shift. Originally, my location had regular hours and regular customers. Overall, it was a simple job, make sure everything was stocked and clean, and keep the coffee fresh. The only real downside, apart from the schedule, was dealing with ungrateful customers. Most of the time it was rushed businessmen who didn't have 5 minutes to wait for a simple cup of coffee, or entitled parents who would blow up about a piece of cheese on a sandwich that they didn't even want. After a few months in the food industry, I developed a newfound respect for people who work in it. Everyone is trying their best. Mistakes happen, and most mistakes can and do get fixed on the spot. I had my share of hostile interactions. In my first week, I accidentally dropped a cup of coffee while handing it to a customer. Luckily, it didn't spill on him. It slipped and hit the floor. Watching that cup fall felt like slow motion. The guy laughed it off, but his girlfriend was livid. She threatened to drag me out back and boil me in hot coffee. My manager saw the whole thing, apologized, and gave them complimentary items. After that, I never dropped another cup. Another time, a woman took a sip of coffee and immediately threw it back at me, insisting it was far too hot and that we were trying to kill her. Thankfully, I was wearing an apron, or it could have been worse. A little over a month ago, our location was selected to become 24 hours. Many places kept limited hours for their drive-thrus, but our store was fully open. The night shift brought an interesting mix of customers. Hipsters and goths who sat in a coffee shop at 3 a.m. nursing one cup for an hour. Overworked interns trying to finish a last-minute presentation. Graveyard shift workers needing caffeine. And the occasional boyfriend thrown into the doghouse. When we were asked to volunteer for the graveyard shift, I thought the quiet and minimal workload would be worth it, so I signed up right away. For the first 2 weeks, everything was fine. The regular late-night crowd became part of my routine, and most people were too tired or apathetic to be rude. The biggest complaint we got was a hipster asking if we had 100% grass-fed organic sugarcane, which I had to explain that this was a Dunkin' Donuts. He huffed and walked away. Then, a few weeks in, a man walked in around 2:30 a.m. He wore a large overcoat with the collar pulled up and a black beanie. The store was otherwise empty. No goths in the corner, no hipsters lingering, and that absence made him stand out even more. At first I thought he might be homeless, trying to escape the cold and find a hot cup of pity. But when I saw his face, my impression changed. He was gaunt, but clean-shaven, with dark circles under his eyes, as if he were tired, but oddly energized. He was very tall. It hit me how tall he was when he leaned forward. I asked what he wanted. He stared straight ahead like he was zoning out. I repeated the question louder, and he said one word.
Coffee.
His voice was harsh, like someone who had been screaming recently. Not wanting to risk awkwardness, I grabbed a fresh cup of black coffee and set it down. He leaned in, locked eyes with me, and asked if I was alone. I told him my manager was in the back. He fished out a few crumpled dollar bills, handed them to me, then walked out without his coffee. As soon as he left, an intense atmosphere lifted from me. I was at a loss for words. I rushed to the back and told my manager what had happened. He told me to put the man's money aside in case he returned. The next night, everything seemed normal. The usual customers sat sipping coffee while I mopped and kept busy. But when I looked out the front window, I saw him again, standing across the street under a streetlight, staring at me. I checked to see if my manager was behind the counter, and when I looked back, the man was gone. It made me uneasy. The following night, I was downright terrified. I was stocking shelves in the back when the front doorbell rang. I rushed out, but froze at the sight before me. The man stood in the lobby, looking terrible. Patchy stubble, thinner cheeks, and lifeless eyes. He didn't answer when I asked if he was all right. I went to grab the phone to call the police. The man charged at me, grabbed me by the throat, and threw me to the ground. Hearing the commotion, my manager burst out of the back and demanded an explanation. I yelled for him to call the police, but when I looked again, the man who had grabbed me was gone. I called out of work for the next 2 nights to recover. In hindsight, I probably should have had my manager contact the police then, but I convinced myself the man was long gone. My last night working there was the worst, and the moment I decided to quit. I arrived and relieved the closing shift. My manager called to say he had a family emergency and would be a few hours late. After 3 uneventful hours of cleaning to keep my mind off things, I glanced out the window. He was there again, standing on the other side of the glass, grinning at me with a sinister smile that made my body seize. I pulled out my phone and called the police. While the call was connecting, the man pulled a phone from his pocket and started typing without looking up. My phone buzzed with a text. It read,
"Now you're alone."
The message came from my manager's phone. I ran into the back office and locked the door. The dispatch operator answered, and I told him what was happening. From the other side of the door, I could hear the front bell and heavy footsteps coming into the back area. The operator said, "2 police cars were on the way." The man began pounding on the door, trying to break it down. I screamed that I had called the police, and they were almost there. Then the banging stopped. A few minutes later, the police arrived, but there were no traces of the man. They took my statement and asked where my manager was. I told them I had no idea, but I thought the man had done something to him. They escorted me home and said they would keep in touch. A week or so passed. I never went back to work, and I never saw the man again. An officer later called to tell me they had found my manager's car in a ditch on a back road, but my manager himself was missing. The security footage from the store had somehow been corrupted and was unusable. I still don't know who or what that thing was or why it targeted me. One thing is certain, I'll never work the graveyard shift anywhere ever again. A few days ago, I packed up my car and made my way to an Airbnb that I rented a few miles outside of Andrews, North Carolina. I live and work just north of Atlanta, Georgia, and being in the city had been draining what little sanity I had left. Most of my team, including myself, had switched to working remotely due to quarantine regulations. Since I live alone, the mental toll of staring at the same 4 walls of my cramped 1-bedroom apartment, day in and day out, was starting to weigh on me. A lot of people were struggling with the transitions to working from home, so overall productivity decreased, and the workload seemed to pile up faster than we could manage. Project after project kept getting dumped into my lap, and with everyone cooped up inside all the time, I didn't feel like I could escape the crushing weight of the added stress. One day, I realized I had reached my breaking point. I submitted a time-off notice to my supervisor, booked an Airbnb, and decided to spend a couple of weeks winding down near the Nantahala National Forest. If I was going to be isolated, I could at least use a change of scenery. I had always enjoyed hiking, fishing, and camping as a child. Moving to the big city for my job had always felt a little out of character, so I was excited to reconnect with nature and enjoy everything the park had to offer. With lockdown restrictions, I figured foot traffic on the hiking trails would be minimal, so I'd basically have most of the woods to myself. The weather was supposed to be nice and cool, perfect for wandering the forest, fishing, birdwatching, or whatever else I felt like doing. I left around sunrise and arrived at my rental shortly before noon. The cabin was moderately sized and rustic, but appeared well maintained for guests. I retrieved the key from the lockbox near the front door and made my way inside to get settled. The cabin was larger than my one-bedroom apartment in the city, but somehow it felt far more welcoming. I walked into the bedroom and took in the breathtaking view from the panoramic window that covered the back wall. Miles of forest stretched as far as the eye could see, gently dissolving into shades of green and grey beneath the thick canopy, which allowed only scattered beams of sunlight to peek through. I considered plopping down on the bed with one of the books I brought, but decided against it. The day was still young, and I was eager to explore. I had gotten lucky finding this cabin. Not only was it secluded within the national forest, but it also had a private hiking trail that started right beside it. Reviews I read before booking said the trail was scenic and captivating. A few miles to the east, the private trail would eventually connect to public hiking routes, but no one had ever reported a stranger wandering onto the private path and ending up near the cabin. I laced up my hiking boots and headed out. Towering trees gently tossed in the wind, rustling their leaves, and I found myself staring upward as I walked deeper into the forest, hardly noticing where I was going, until something tall and dark caught my attention. Deep within the trees off the beaten path, I squinted to make out the object, but couldn't tell what it was. Against my better judgment, I turned off the trail and walked toward it. Curiosity had gotten the better of me, and I knew I wouldn't sleep that night unless I quenched my thirst for adventure. As I approached, I realized I was staring at a darkly colored metal staircase, seemingly leading to nowhere. I walked around the base, trying to find evidence of what it had once connected to. To my surprise, there was none. I chuckled at the absurdity of it, reaching for my back pocket to grab my phone for a photo, but I had left it in the cabin. Probably not the best idea to be out there without a phone anyway. I turned back and returned to the trail, heading back to the cabin. Exhausted from the hike, I took a hot shower and decided to spend the rest of the evening relaxing. The next morning, I woke feeling refreshed, though I couldn't shake the thought of that bizarre staircase. After breakfast, I laced up my boots again, double-checked that I had my phone, and set out to snap some pictures to confirm I hadn't imagined the whole thing. After walking for a while, scouring the dense forest, I began to feel defeated. I couldn't locate exactly where I had found the staircase yesterday. Just as I considered heading back to the cabin for lunch, a strange noise caught my attention from up ahead. I walked toward it, and what started as a low humming evolved into the rumbling tones of tribal horns, played in unison throughout the forest. The sound grew louder, and a creeping feeling of dread pooled in my stomach, as if the horns had hypnotized me. Suddenly, I found myself at the foot of the mysterious staircase. The horns were deafening now, and, as if guided by a force beyond my control, I placed my foot on the first step, slowly ascending against my own free will. At the top, cold sweat broke across my body. My heart pounded, yet I felt unable to will my body to turn and leave. A deep, withering sense coursed through my veins, churning my stomach and weakening me. I stared into the forest, noticing the edges of my vision darken and blur. Just before I lost consciousness, my eyes focused on a tall, dark figure in the trees, seemingly watching me. Seconds later, my legs folded beneath me, and the sound of the horns faded to peaceful silence. When I awoke, I was lying in my bed at the cabin. Panicked, I reached for my phone. Nearly midnight, my first thought was that I had napped, perhaps having a nightmare. My memory was hazy, and I struggled to recall the morning's events. I dismissed it as stress and an overactive imagination. I breathed a sigh of relief until I noticed I was still wearing my hiking boots. I had never been this exhausted in my life. A sudden, lingering feeling of being watched washed over me. I remembered that the large panoramic window remained uncovered, open to the inky black forest. My hands shook as I summoned the courage to face the darkness, telling myself nothing would be there. To my horror, outside the window stood a tall, thin black figure. Its head resembled an eyeless deer skull, several sets of bony antlers twisted and snarled atop it, framing a cracked, decaying jaw. Its body appeared made of twisted, gnarled branches and vines, dark and pulsing, as if composed of rotting worms. I stifled a scream, shuffling backward and scrambling for my car keys. I bolted from the cabin, threw the car in reverse, and sped down the winding dirt road, never daring to check the rearview mirror. I didn't stop until I reached my apartment in Atlanta. Once inside, I checked my phone, hoping to find photos to prove what I had seen, but there was nothing. I'm still unsure exactly what I encountered in those woods, but one thing is clear. If you ever find a staircase in the forest, turn and run away as fast as you can. I hate the airport. I couldn't help thinking that as I stood in yet another baggage check line. The sounds of warring conveyor belts and clattering shoes filled the space. Parents tried to calm their screaming children, while the elderly in front of me moved like molasses, bringing everything to a standstill. Clerks at each counter gave off 1,000-yard stares, as if they had all just served in a hellish war. Despite my disdain, air travel was a necessary evil for my job. It's hard to be a traveling consultant if, well, I'm not traveling. Some might ask why I don't find another line of work, but starting positions wouldn't give me the salary or benefits I currently have. I approached the counter, handed over my ticket and ID. The woman didn't look at me, punching keys on her computer before asking me to place my bags on the scale. A few moments later, tags printed, bags sent down the conveyor, and I was handed my receipt with a polite, "Enjoy your flight." Despite my misgivings, I planned to enjoy this flight. I'd been traveling non-stop since the start of the year, flying across the country performing inspections at various company locations. This time, I was heading home for a full month off. After security, I made my way to the gate. Arriving early, I found a seat between a family whose kids shouted at an iPad and a man shoveling a sandwich into his face. I turned to my phone to block it all out. Time blurred until an announcement startled me. The flight was boarding. Glancing out the window, I saw the plane sitting at the gate, as if it had been there the entire time. I rubbed my eyes and made my way down the connector. Stepping onto the plane, I felt a strange shift in the air and heavier than normal for just a fraction of a second, then gone. I filed to my seat, silently praying for decent neighbors. My prayers were usually ignored. This time, however, the plane was fairly empty. Only one person sat to my right, a young man scrolling on his phone like I had been earlier. The attendants demonstrated the safety procedures. The plane taxied, then lifted off. I watched the ground fade beneath the clouds, checked my watch, and closed the window shade. I had never been able to sleep on planes, but years of this job taught me how to block everything out. Shortly after drifting off, violent shaking jolted me awake. Heavy turbulence. Worse than anything I'd experienced. After a nauseating moment, the plane steadied. That's when I noticed something strange. The young man next to me wasn't looking at his phone. He stared straight ahead. My watch hadn't moved since takeoff. Sliding it to my ear, I realized the battery had died. I peered out the window. My heart seized. The sky was black. No clouds, no sun, just an endless void. Looking down, there was nothing. No ground, no water, only darkness. It didn't make sense. My flight was only 2.5 hours, and I had boarded at 1:30 p.m. Yet here it was, an unnatural night. All the passengers sat motionless, staring ahead. I pulled out my phone. It glowed briefly, then went dark again. Was this a dream? Then I heard it, a sound behind me, like cracking knuckles. I peeked through the narrow space in my chair. Something stood in the rear aisle, nearly scraping the cabin ceiling. Tall, thin, impossibly long fingers, cracking and popping as it rested on the seats. When it leaned into one aisle, the lights flickered out one by one. Its eyes locked with mine. I froze, sweat beading on my forehead. The creature moved down the aisle, standing inches from the man next to me. Its face was grotesque. Grey skin, marred with scratches and missing flesh. Its lower jaw was gone, a slimy black tongue dangling from the back of its neck. It stared into the man's eyes, then turned toward me. Its neck extended unnaturally, head floating directly in front of mine. I couldn't breathe. Its ghostly white eyes had no pupils. Seconds stretched into eternity. Slowly its neck retracted, and it moved down the aisle, repeating the process. Suddenly, it stopped a few rows ahead. A shriek filled the cabin. It ripped someone from their seat, dragged them into the aisle, then vanished in a cloud of black smoke. The plane shook violently again. I shut my eyes, praying. When I dared to look again, light peeked through the left window. The young man next to me stared at his phone, unaffected. He noticed my panicked state and asked if I was okay. I exhaled heavily, nodding, calling it a bad dream. The plane landed. As I disembarked, I stopped by the seat where the creature had made its noise. The seats were empty, but one seat belt had been torn in half. My hands shook as I left the plane. Once on solid ground, I leaned against the wall and checked my phone. Something was wrong. An entire week had passed. I had boarded at 1:30 p.m. on Sunday. Now it was 4:15 p.m. on Saturday. My tickets all read 1:30 p.m. Saturday the 7th. I knew that wasn't right. My consultation had ended on Saturday, February 29th, and my flight was the next day. Even my watch confirmed it. The date displayed 1. I have so many questions. What was that thing? Where did it come from? Why did it take the random passenger? Where did it drag them? Why did we all lose a week, but no one else seemed to notice? Nothing about that flight made sense. During my time off, I think I'll apply for a new position. One that never requires me to step foot inside an airport again. I literally had no other choice. This whole situation started when we were dispatched to a welfare check of an elderly woman. It was called in by one of her friends. She claimed she hadn't seen or heard from her in a few days. She stated the woman lived alone and had no family to check on her, and she wanted to be sure she was in good health. My partner and I responded just like we did to any call. A few jokes on the way to the scene to ease any tension that may be headed our way.
Maybe you can keep her company. Lord knows that you need someone in your life.
My partner said with a slight laugh.
Yeah, dealing with you every day can lead to depression. It would be nice to have someone to complain to.
When we arrived to the house, it didn't look run down. The lawn was well maintained. The porch light worked. It actually seemed kind of cozy. Reminded me of my grandmother's house. We approached the door and gave an easy knock.
Hello, this is the police. If anyone is home, can you please answer the door? Just conducting a welfare check.
No response, so I knocked again.
Ma'am, this is the police. We received a call. Just want to make sure you're doing okay.
I was just about to contact dispatch when the door slowly opened. Peering from around the corner was an elderly woman.
Ma'am, are you the owner of the house?
Yes, I sure am.
She said with a sweet smile.
We were dispatched to perform a welfare check on you. Your friend said she hasn't heard from you in a while and just wanted to make sure you were safe.
Oh, yes, dear, I'm fine. Just couldn't figure out this damn phone, so I haven't been able to get in touch with anyone.
Oh, I see. What's wrong with the phone? Maybe I can help.
Well, it's new and I can't seem to get it to work like my old one. It's a bit chilly out. Can you boys please come in so we can all warm up? I'll grab my phone from the kitchen.
It was a warm night, so I thought it was a bit strange. I shot a quick look at my partner, but he just shrugged. I motioned to my partner to enter the house. I just wanted to lend a helping hand. When we entered, there was a strong scent. I couldn't put my finger on it. A candle, I thought. I wasn't sure. We made our way to the kitchen, and just as we passed the threshold, we heard what sounded like a bell. It was coming from upstairs. I know my partner heard it too, because when I looked at him, he stopped dead in his tracks. We heard it at the same time, not sure what it was, and believing the woman to be alone, I asked what the noise was.
Well, what noise, dear? Here is this pain in the neck phone.
She held it out, waiting for me to take it. Just before I grabbed it, she pulled it back.
Would you gentlemen like something to eat or drink?
No thank you, ma'am. I'll just help you with the phone and we will be on our way.
It's so lonely here, though. Please stay.
Footsteps, above us, running. I looked at the woman.
Ma'am, are you here alone?
Well, we're never really alone, are we?
I looked at my partner, and he had already taken out his firearm. Without any more hesitation, I withdrew mine.
Who else?
Before I could finish, the elderly woman took off in a sprint. She ran straight out of the kitchen to the next room. I took off running after her. At that moment, there was a scream from upstairs, a cry for help.
Go after her. You find out what the hell is going on.
My partner yelled as he sprinted for the staircase. I walked into the living room to find the woman sitting on the couch. Facing away from me, I held my gun to her.
Don't move. I need you to tell me what is happening.
We have just been so desperate for some company,
she said, still facing away from me. I could hear yelling coming from upstairs. Muffled, but I was able to make out just enough.
Police, don't fucking move!
You should check your friend, dear.
I slowly began to back away. I had my gun drawn on the old woman still. I yelled up without taking my eyes off of her.
Partner, you good?
No, he isn't,
the old woman said slowly. Gunshots rang out, not from my gun, from upstairs. A flurry of them. I ran up the stairs. My partner needed me. We needed to get the fuck out. Just as I reached the top, I saw him. He was fine. Not a scratch on him, not a worried look on his face. Gun in his holster. What the hell happened? You good?
I'm good, brother. Shadow's playing tricks on me is all. Let's get out of here and call this in.
He didn't seem right. There were gunshots. I heard his yelling. Shadows. He was blaming him discharging his firearm on Shadows. When we returned downstairs, the woman was nowhere to be found. We searched the entire property right after we called it in. Our supervisors arrived a few minutes later. They told us we needed to make statements, give our account of what happened. We would have to return to the precinct. They separated us when we got there. All procedure. They needed to make sure our stories matched up. I said exactly what happened. From the call we received from dispatch to the old woman needing help with her phone. I didn't leave out any details. After telling my side of the story, I wanted to check on my partner. I walked into the lobby and he was nowhere to be found. I saw my supervisor reviewing some paperwork, so I went over and asked,
Hey boss, any idea where he went?
Yeah, said his body cam fell off in the chaos. We need the footage, so I sent him and another officer back to the scene to get it.
No, that wasn't right. I saw it on him. It was on his chest when I went to check on him. Something was wrong. I hopped in my personal car and floored it. My tires scraped against the curb as I pulled up to the house. I saw the sector car they came in. They were already inside. I took out my gun and headed to the front door. Porch lights off. Something ominous hung over the house. The door was slightly ajar, so I pushed it open the rest of the way. Before I could make any sort of announcement, I heard it again. A bell.
I can always count on you to have my back.
I heard my partner's voice.
Everything okay? Where are you guys?
It's just me, buddy. Come upstairs.
My instincts took over. I knew I had to clear out downstairs before I made any motion towards the staircase. I went room by room, clearing it the best I could. I stepped deeper into the hallway, gun raised, and that was when I saw him, the officer that accompanied my partner, or what was left of him. He was slumped against the baseboard like he'd collapsed mid-run. His legs were twisted underneath him, one shoe missing. His fingers curled into the carpet like he'd tried to dig himself forward. His eyes were open, wide, unblinking, staring at something that wasn't here anymore. His throat, Jesus. I dropped to a knee beside him before my brain caught up with what I was seeing. Training took over. I began to check for a pulse. My fingers brushed his neck. Cold, so cold. And then, a whisper, right against my ear. Close enough that I felt the warmth of breath that was not mine.
Don't look at him. Look at me.
The voice wrong. My partner's cadence layered with something deeper, something inhuman. I spun around so fast I almost slipped on blood. Gun raised, finger tight on the trigger. Nobody. Empty hallway. No movement. Just my own heartbeat punching through my ribs. For half a second, I let myself breathe. Footsteps, pounding, upstairs, coming down the stairwell in a dead sprint. Not one pair, more, like multiple people rushing at once. I stepped back, gun up again, and then he hit me. My partner came out of the shadows at the bottom of the staircase, moving faster than any person I'd ever seen. His hand clamped around my throat before I could even shout. One arm, just one, lifting me off the ground like I weighed nothing. His eyes weren't his. They were wrong. Dilated, unfocused. Black in the middle like something was staring through him. I clawed at his wrist, feet kicking against the air. Spots filling my vision as he leaned in too close. Growls vibrating with something that wasn't human. Then, he threw me. My body tore through the doorway and slammed across the kitchen floor, my shoulder cracking against a cabinet hard enough to knock the wind from my lungs. I gasped, choked, tried to get to my knees. His shadow spilled across the kitchen tiles before he did. Slow steps, heavy, not rushed like before, deliberate like each one was being chosen for him. I tried to steady the barrel of my gun, but my shoulder screamed and the sights bobbed with every shaky breath. I pressed myself against the cabinet, trying to force air back into my lungs. He entered the kitchen, not bruised, not limping, not even breathing hard, just watching me. But something flickered behind his eyes. A twitch, small, fast, like someone pulling on a string inside him.
Stay back,
I said, raising the gun a little higher. He didn't stop. His lips moved like he was trying to form a word and couldn't. His jaw clenched, then unclenched, like two different instincts were fighting for control. Another step.
Don't do this. Whatever's happening, stop.
His head jerked once, hard, like he'd been yanked, and for a split second, a single, terrible moment, I saw him, my partner, not the thing using him, not the wrongness in his posture. Him. His eyes widened, panic slicing through the blank stare. His chest hitched like he was trying to suck in a breath. His hand twitched sharply at his side. He looked at me. Really looked at me.
Please.
He choked, voice trembling like he was speaking through a mouth that wasn't his.
I can't stop it.
His fingers clawed at his own throat, like he was trying to tear something off from the inside.
Shoot!
He gasped, panic exploding in his expression.
Shoot me now!
Then his face collapsed into stillness. His arm dropped back to his side. His posture straightened. And when he looked up again, my partner was gone. The thing behind his eyes wasn't hiding anymore. He stepped forward, slow and confident, like the plea had never happened. A cold pressure flooded the room, like the air thickened around me. He lifted his hand, not to strike, not to grab, but to offer it, palm open, as if inviting me to join him. My fingers tightened on the trigger.
I'm sorry,
I said, barely audible. Nothing human answered. He lunged, and I fired. I don't remember hitting the floor afterward, or the way my hands wouldn't stop shaking, or the high-pitched ringing in my ears that made everything sound underwater. What I do remember is screaming for backup. I remember forcing myself out of that house, stumbling, coughing, blood on my uniform that wasn't mine, grabbing my radio with fingers that barely worked.
Officer down. Shots fired. I shot my partner.
My voice cracked.
Send everyone.
The rest comes in pieces. Red and blue lights flooding the lawn. Boots pounding up the steps. My supervisor shouting my name. Someone taking my gun out of my hand before I even realized I was still holding it. Hands on my shoulders. Voices asking if I was hit. If I could hear them. If I needed EMS. I couldn't answer any of them. I just kept staring at the open front door. At the dark inside. At what I knew was lying on that kitchen floor. When we got back to the precinct, I was brought into an interrogation room. Everyone was there. Lieutenant, sergeant, captain, everyone. They began to question me about the night. They wanted a rundown of everything that took place, from the moment we got the call to the moment backup arrived after I shot my partner. I once again left nothing out. Old woman, the bell, footsteps, My partner and I separating, the return to the house, the other dead officer, the struggle with my partner, the gunshot. From their perspective, I sounded crazy. I'm sure of it. The body cam footage would be my only saving grace. My supervisor chimed in.
We have the footage from your initial call. Would you like to see it?
I would.
A laptop was brought in and set on the table. They began to play the footage. Everything was exactly how I said. We reached the point where my partner went upstairs. He begins to ascend the staircase. Slowly, calm. He reaches the top landing. He sweeps the hallway with his flashlight and begins to approach an open bedroom door. As soon as he steps foot in that bedroom, something happened. He shouted,
Police, don't fucking move!
The room was empty. There was no one else in the frame. But there was my partner, gun drawn, aiming down the sights, giving commands.
Partner, you good?
I heard my voice, faint, coming from downstairs. My partner screamed. The shadows in the room began to shift, but still, no one else was present. Shots were fired, and my partner fell to the ground. His body cam fell to the floor. My partner was seen in the corner of the frame, frantically trying to regain his composure, and then suddenly he sat up straight. He grabbed his camera and he stood up and exited the room. Our conversation about the shadows playing tricks on him can be heard in the last few seconds of the footage. The laptop was closed and the silence in the room was deafening. I was told to go home and that the investigation would continue over the course of the next few days. I'm home now, writing this, because I don't know what else to do. And every time I blink, I see his face, not the thing wearing him, but the moment he came back, the moment he begged me. I keep telling myself I saved him. The shadows on my bedroom wall keep getting longer, and I swear they're waiting for me to turn off the light. I'm not sure how this investigation will end, but I know one thing for certain. Whatever happened in that house, whatever was in that house, it's not gone. It's waiting.
If you are based in the UK and would like to enjoy freshly batch roasted coffee delivered to your door, visit vitalcoffee.co.uk and use the coupon code mrfreakystory to get 10% off from all products. I will leave a link in the description below.